And welcome back to Rob Schmidt tonight. Ridiculous excuses continue from the White House as migrants continue to pour across our joke of a southern border by the tens of thousands. An administration blaming this on anything except the real actual problem. Take a listen.
Say there's a range of factors which are happening in these countries where individuals are leaving from. Economic challenges, weather challenges, crime.
So that was in response to a question about why the numbers are going up into the summer when they usually go down. And it comes as border crossings hit another 20-year record. This is such a ridiculous problem. Preliminary numbers showing Border Patrol encountered more than 200,000 migrants just last month. And again, this is the middle of a very hot summer in the Southwest. That's up from over 188,000 in June, more than double the amount that we saw in February, which is usually when this happens, when the weather is cooler. And they should be going down, like we said. All right, we're going to talk more about this with Senator Ron Johnson from the state of Wisconsin, also on the Senate Homeland Security Committee. Sir, thank you so much for the time.
Hello, Rob. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, doing pretty good. But when you see this stuff, it's just ridiculous. To watch this number from February to now doubling, I mean, this is when it's supposed to be going down. How ridiculous is that?
Well, it generally does go down because the summer months are that much hotter and that much more dangerous. You know, Vice President Harris went down to Central America searching for the root cause. She should have just walked into the Oval Office because the root cause is President Biden and his policies. That's what's causing this. And we are, you talk about 188,000 or over 200,000 a month. It's over 6,000 people per day that are being apprehended. We know that's somewhere between 750 and 1,000 known gotaways. We don't know how many unknown gotaways there are. I did a quick little calculation, said that if this on this pace, based on the number of people they are releasing into the interior with a notice to appear or just a notice to report, plus the known gotaways, we're looking at about 600,000 people this year being let into America, being dispersed throughout the country, cities, states. They don't know where these people are going. But just to put that in perspective, Wyoming doesn't have that much of a population. Right. This is a group of people larger than the population of Wyoming, approaching the population of Vermont, and it's growing. This isn't abating. It's not getting less. Every month it's growing. It's approaching 7,000 people per day.
It's beyond insane. And to think that when you look back at politics, if you go back just 15 years ago, both parties would look at a problem like this and say, this is absolutely insane, and we need to contain this immediately. And in just that 15 years, one party has completely just disappeared.
Yeah, Rob, in 2006, they passed the Secure Fence Act. It was going to build about 700 miles of fence. Even President Biden voted for that. President Obama voted for that.
Hillary.
Majority Leader Schumer voted for that Secure Fence Act. So securing the border used to be bipartisan, but not anymore. Tomorrow I'll be offering an amendment to build the fence that we've already bought and paid for. It's cost us about $2 billion to stop construction on the fence. It's costing us about $3 million a day to guard the fence components down there. And so where I'm getting a fence out of this expense. This is madness. Obviously, Nancy Pelosi, Democrats believe fences work because you saw they surrounded the Capitol in 7-8 foot high concertina wire tip fencing to protect themselves, but they won't protect the American public.
Not only that, they're spending our money to exacerbate a problem. Welcome to woke politics. Such a joke. You questioned the Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas last week over migrants that are being released into American cities. They're shipping them off into other places without anybody's knowledge. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
Does every state, does every city know when you are sending a truckload or a busload or a few people into their city or into their jurisdiction with a notice to appear, a notice to report?
We do not, and there are reasons for that under the law. And let me say
that's all I need to know.
That's all you need to know. And you also asked him about the number of known gotaways, I should say, entering the country. He couldn't answer that question either. This is not a very competent person at the job, I would say.
No, they're letting people in. We know they have COVID. They're dispersing them all through America. They're not giving any notice whatsoever to cities or to states. He said, well, sometimes we cooperate with those jurisdictions. But again, he's just making that up on the fly.
Yeah.
So this is a full-blown disaster. one fact that is not widely known, when you think of unaccompanied children, we all think of like 2 and 3-year-old little kids. 70% of unaccompanied children are 15, 16, or 17. 70% are male.
Yeah, we're coming to your word.
When you've got the gang problem that will be exploding in this country, those individuals fit the recruitment profile of people getting into gangs, and they're also, that age group are what drug traffickers use to traffic their drugs, because if they're caught as a minor, they don't serve hard time.
Right.
So we are funneling drug trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking. The human depredations of this crisis are just so tragic. And the Biden administration knows these things, but they are just completely ignoring it. They are in a complete state of denial.
It's unreal. It really is something else when you lay it all out. And it's a story, it's so redundant. We cover it all the time, and it gets so boring in some ways, but then you realize how bad this problem is. And the sad thing is that it happens every day, and people just start not paying attention to something that is so bad. Senator Johnson, thank you so much for the time. Good to see you.
Have a good night.
All right, you soon won't be able to go to a gym or a restaurant in New York City without proof of vaccination, as Bill de Blasio makes an ultimatum.
Gunfire was exchanged, and there were several casualties. The incident is over, the scene is secure, and most importantly, there's no continuing threat to our community.
All right, Pentagon Police Chief Woodrow Kusse earlier today, after a shooting outside the Pentagon that left one police officer and the suspect dead. It's just the latest incident at a time when crime surges are commonplace in so many American cities, and the war on police has never been more real, it would seem. Retired NYPD detective, first grade Harry Houck, joins us now to talk more about this. And sir, thank you so much for the time.
Thanks for having me here, Rob.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the 5 cities that reduced their police budgets the most in 2020, Austin, Texas, New York City, Minneapolis, Seattle, and Denver, have seen murders spike over the past year well above the national average. In your 25 years you spent as a detective, did you ever see a surge like this happen so fast?
No, I've never seen that. I was in New York City in the 80s and 90s where the crime rate was really high, but it took a time for it to get there. Now, in these other cities here, back in the 80s and 90s, we didn't have this rhetoric against the police officers. All right. Now there's a lot of rhetoric against the police officers. Now we have the war on law and order and the war on police officers, which is going on in these Democrat cities, and it needs to stop. Now, the simple answer to putting an end to all these shootings, and it's very simple, Rob, all right? Make arrests and convictions and put the guys in jail for long periods of time. That is what is required. And we keep on seeing this happening more and more every day. And the longer that these Democrat politicians don't do nothing about this anarchy that's going on in these cities, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So we haven't seen nothing yet.
I know. And that's what you just said, the last part. We haven't seen nothing yet because, like you said, you worked in this city in the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s before Giuliani cleaned it all up, and we saw how bad it gets. And what's so annoying to me is that we live on this pendulum where as soon as we get to a point where we get things really, really good and we've really cleaned things up, then you get all the liberals screaming, well, why do we have to be so strict? Why do you got to be so tough on criminals? And then we start to do policies like we've seen over the last few years, and we swing right back to crime and disorder. And it's so frustrating that you can never hold on to it. We had such a good thing under Giuliani and Bloomberg, and we threw it all away.
It was such a safe city. I remember when I was working in robbery in the East Village, we had 1,000 robberies in 1 square mile a year. We had to have 9 detectives just working on robberies. God. When I left and retired in 2001, we didn't even have to have a robbery team anymore. And we went from 25 homicides a year to 1. All right, so that shows you how much, Giuliani and Bratton straightened out the city. We had so many restrictions on us also earlier under Democratic mayors. So as soon as we get Democratic leadership, look what happens. The city goes back to where it was before.
And the people that claim to be protecting these communities so much are fine with just an absolute bloodbath in those same communities. That's the irony of all of it. And we showed this headline last night. Yeah. And yeah, hang on one second. We showed this headline. You know, people have been showing it all week. 55 people were shot in Chicago over the weekend. 55. 7 killed. 2 were under the age of 18. Now, the mayor there is a fool, as expected, but she's not defund the police. She's not there. She's not that far yet, but she's getting a lot of pressure to do just that from activist groups. Let's go ahead and take a listen to this.
We demand a divestment from the Chicago Police Department and that the $1.8 billion of public resources be directly reinvested into Chicago's under-resourced communities in order to build and expand life-affirming institutions.
So, I mean, there is a huge faction of people in this country that think if you take a police department's budget and just give it to people that live in inner cities, that they're going to be so happy with the money that they'll just never commit crime again. How insane is that?
Sure, exactly. I mean, that's pure insanity. You're taking money away from the police department, so you're taking away overtime for police officers to go and react in areas where you have a high amount of shootings and homicides. And they think if you take $50 million and put it into a basketball program somewhere in the inner city, that all of a sudden the gangs will stop. Hey, we'll just play basketball from now on. It's such a great idea. The fact is, these drug dealers are making so much money. Okay, that these small kids on the street see that, all right, and it creates an atmosphere where these kids growing up in the street want that. Yeah. So that's why we're seeing the crime rate. That's why we're seeing people getting into gangs.
It's a culture
and then
problem.
These gangs fighting each other for their turf.
It's a horrific culture problem in this country. It's not a police problem. It never has been, and you'd have to be an idiot to think otherwise. Retired first-grade NYPD Detective Harry Houck, sir, thank you so much for the time.
Thanks for having me, man.
Good to see you. All right, coming up, the Muppet Babies doing their own version of Cinderella, and then something really bizarre happens. Take a look. The left, the whole country talking about Governor Andrew Cuomo today, the once hero of COVID, the next president of the United States, the left's former boy toy, now in a total free fall. Sexual allegations, nursing home allegations that are far worse, book money allegations. But Cuomo's brother, Chris, on CNN, went his entire show and didn't mention it even once tonight. But when he passed it off to Don Lemon, who comes up next, here's exactly what happened.
I'm going to make my witness, as you say, and you know what? Witness. I love you, brother.
I love you, D. Lemon.
All right. This is Don Lemon tonight. The calls are getting louder and louder. This is what I'm talking about. Top Democrats from New York to the White House calling on Governor Andrew Cuomo to resign. That in the wake of the bombshell report from the state's attorney general that alleges the governor sexually harassed 11.
There you have it. So, Chris didn't do it, but it's the top story on every other show. Just a little awkward. Next up, woke Olympian Gwen Berry, the hammer thrower who infamously faced the stands rather than the American flag during the medal ceremony at the Olympic trials, the woman who plays sports for this country but hates this country, has failed to even medal during the women's hammer throw finals on Tuesday, finishing in 11th place out of 12 competitors. As a form of protest this time around, she even took the time to raise a fist before competing. That raised fist used long ago by communists is yet again a sign of a losing whatever perspective, losing agenda, losing person, loser, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Poland won the gold and the bronze. China won the silver. There's the winners. Congratulations, though, to Gwen on finishing 11th place. You've got to be in at least the top 40% of hammer throwers worldwide. 11th place? How many people even throw these things? 20? Way to light the Olympics on fire. Finally, first it was the Blues Clues. Now the woke left has turned their sights on another beloved children's franchise, the Muppet Babies. I don't know much about this, but in the latest episode, they do their version of the Cinderella story, except there's one big change. The Muppet gifted the fancy dress and glass sneakers in this version is Gonzo, who is a boy. Take a look. Out.com touted this episode as beautiful and an absolutely perfect message for kids. Good luck explaining that one to your 5-year-old. Welcome to Woke America. All right, coming up, the NIH needs to muzzle its director before they lose all their credibility. The director of the agency that funded the Wuhan lab had a doozy on Sunday and another one today.
Which means recommendations of mask wearing.
And welcome to Rob Schmidt Tonight. There are some inherent truths about most politicians that cannot be denied. Most are at least marginally corrupt. They care far more about their political careers than their constituents. And a lot of them have massive egos, which in some cases lead to their downfalls. Enter New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo, the son of a 3-term New York governor. Andrew never had to work too hard. His path was pretty much paved by Dad. And Cuomo embraced power the same way that so many awful people do, by abusing it. In Cuomo's mind, no woman could ever say no. Of course, he's the king of New York. Today, the Attorney General of this state, Letitia James, released her sexual harassment report. Now, a quick primer on this. Tish James is the same AG who promised to get Trump by whatever means necessary as she campaigned for Attorney General. So she's kind of awful. Tish James also wants Andrew Cuomo's job. So she has a clear agenda in all this. And today, Miss James broadcasted her message like she was auditioning for something. It was fairly painful to watch, like any bad acting we see in Washington, D.C. A woman who just wants Andrew Cuomo out of the way. But leaving all that aside, let's just enjoy watching a liberal hack devour one of the biggest names in her own party. Here's Tish James confirming all 11 of Andrew Cuomo's accusers are credible.
Governor Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed current and former New York State employees by engaging in unwelcome and non-consensual touching and making numerous offensive comments of a suggestive and sexual nature that created a hostile work environment for women.
Interestingly enough, the investigation did find unlawful conduct, but the Attorney General will not be pursuing any charges against Cuomo. You can clearly see this was very much politically orchestrated. Just hit Cuomo hard enough to get him out of office, but don't hurt him or the party unnecessarily by bringing up criminal charges. We save that for Republicans only. James is the Attorney General, but says it's on other localities to bring charges because her job here is done. Sure. At the end of the day, these are the same people who investigated Trump nonstop for purely political purposes, so you shouldn't be surprised. Here's more from today's news conference.
The executive chamber's workplace culture, one rife with bullying, fear, and intimidation on the one hand, while normalizing frequent flirtations and gender-based comments by the governor on the other, created the conditions that allowed the sexual harassment and retaliation to occur and to persist.
One executive assistant described an instance where Cuomo pulled her in for a hug, reached under her blouse, and grabbed her breast. On several occasions, she says that he grabbed her butt. Cuomo had a state trooper moved to his personal protective service before she was even qualified, and proceeded to harass her on multiple occasions as well. She describes an incident where he ran his hands across her body and made comments that are too sultry for me to even say on this show. Cuomo did this privately for years while publicly portraying himself as exactly the opposite of this. In a now priceless tweet from 2013, there should be a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to sexual harassment and must send a clear message that this behavior is not tolerated. Andrew Cuomo 8 years ago. Obviously, zero tolerance was a bridge too far for Cuomo. He should have carved out just a small amount of tolerance for his own behavior. Not zero tolerance per se, maybe a little bit of tolerance, maybe one tolerance for himself. But isn't this just the best part of politics? Again, we watch the phony, pious left. A governor demanding an end to all inappropriate behavior from all men in all circumstances while he runs around playing grab ass in Albany. And then there's this incredible twist. Today, investigators effectively said that Cuomo's own pandering policies to the Me Too movement came back to bite him on the butt, which at least is one thing the governor hasn't been accused of doing to anyone else, at least not yet.
The governor himself, in August of 2019, passed a law that eliminated in New York State the requirement that harassing conduct needed to be severe or pervasive. In New York, a woman need only show that she was treated less well, at least in part, because of her gender. The governor's conduct, detailed in the report, clearly meets and far exceeds this standard.
So Cuomo, pandering to Me Too, makes the standards just so low to get any kind of sexual harassment claim, right? And the whole time he's just breaking all these rules. I mean, you can't make it up. You gotta love the Democrats, because there's one thing you can count on: they're always gonna break their own rules, because they love to make rules and they don't like to follow them. Check out COVID if you don't believe that. And now, because they are the party of the woke, the party of Me Too, Democrats, of course, will have no choice but to eat one of their own. 1 year ago, Andrew Cuomo was all set to be a presidential contender. And let me just illustrate to you how difficult it is to find these people. It's hard as hell to find people that can run this country. Look at the people that run this country. It's really hard to find presidential material. Remember how much of the media fawned over Andrew Cuomo in the early days of COVID. We all saw this coming.
Governor Cuomo out there day after day after day, everything Trump isn't: honest, direct, brave.
Real leadership of the kind the President of the United States should have provided.
Governor Cuomo has become a national leader.
For a lot of people, Andrew Cuomo has become the leader of the Democratic Party.
He is conveying incredible strength.
This has been a remarkable show of leadership by Governor Cuomo in recent days. He's providing hope, but not false hope.
How many times are we going to watch these people make idiots of themselves? Isn't it just fascinating? It's so incredible to watch. Between Cuomo and Avenatti, Democrats really know how to pick their poster boys. I mean, this is now the second person that was going to be the next president of the United States has just fallen so far. It's amazing to watch. Now top Democrats are forced to do the unthinkable. They're going to have to end a top Democrat's career, and they're doing it right now. President Biden, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Majority Leader Schumer, even the leader of his biggest city, Mayor Bill de Blasio, all top Democrats saying, Cuomo, you gotta go. But as expected, the governor is going to barricade himself inside the governor's mansion. Why? Because he's a career politician and he's got no other options.
I want you to know directly from me that I never touched anyone inappropriately or made inappropriate sexual advances. I am 63 years old. I've lived my entire adult life in public view. That is just not who I am, and that's not who I have ever been.
New York Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie released this statement earlier. The governor has lost the confidence of the Assembly Democratic majority, and he can no longer remain in office. There will be a quick vote to impeach Cuomo. It could even happen this week, and it's hard to imagine many will be able to justify any kind of acquittal on this, because they're going to have to answer for that. The president himself was asked about Cuomo today several times. Probably pretty hard, pretty awkward. Biden himself has been credibly accused of not only just weird touching, but full-blown sexual assault by a woman named Tara Reid. Cuomo is following the Joe Biden playbook on this. Listen to Biden back in 2019.
I want to talk about gestures of support and encouragement that I've made to women and some men that have made them uncomfortable. And I always try to be, in my career, I've always tried to make a human connection. That's my responsibility, I think. I shake hands, I hug people, I grab men and women by the shoulders and say, you can do this. And whether they're women, men, young, old, it's the way I've always been. It's the way I've tried to show I care about them and I'm listening.
So you have that, and here's Cuomo today.
I do kiss people on the forehead. I do kiss people on the cheek. I do kiss people on the hand. I do embrace people. I do hug people, men and women.
So just like Biden only responded to the lesser allegations, Cuomo does as well, telling story after story of just touching people's faces and necks, avoiding responding to the allegations that were laid out by a Democrat attorney general saying that he was grabbing private parts and doing a whole lot more. Joining me now is New York gubernatorial candidate Andrew Giuliani. Good to see you, Andrew.
Rob, good to see you too. You know, it's absolutely disturbing. Andrew Cuomo, one of the things he said in his press conference is that he's Italian. Well, guess what? I can tell you I'm Italian, and you know ultimately what is right and what is wrong. The fact that he would use his Italian heritage and the fact that we like to hug our family to excuse his inappropriate behavior is disgusting. As an Italian, I'm offended.
Yeah, he says he's just an affectionate guy. You know, that's how he's going to try and brush this off, and he's going to hope that people ignore a lot of the accusations. But here's more from the AG.
The governor also engaged in a widespread pattern of subjecting women to unwanted hugs and kisses and touching them in ways that made them uncomfortable. Conduct that is not just old-fashioned affectionate behavior, as he and some of his staff members would have it, but unlawful sex-based harassment.
Unlawful sex-based harassment. They say unlawful, but they're not bringing charges. Why do you think that is?
Well, look, as you outlined before in your monologue there, Rob, I mean, we're talking about a guy who has all of these different issues that are coming up right now all at the same time. Yeah. When it comes to the $5.1 billion book deal, when we're talking about the 9,000 deaths, when we're talking about hiding the data from all this. But the truth is, when we talk specifically about what he's done, what his conduct is, this has been just a pattern of Andrew Cuomo thinking that he is above the rest. If we would take his statements on Brett Kavanaugh, on Al Franken, on Schneiderman, he called on them to resign immediately. So if you had Andrew Cuomo listen to Andrew Cuomo right now, he would be resigning. But that's the hypocrisy that you've outlined so eloquently in your monologue here. The truth is, it's long past time that Andrew Cuomo, if he does not resign, which I don't expect him to, the assembly needs to start impeaching, and they need to come back to Albany and start impeaching this week. They need to come there, do their job, and impeach Andrew Cuomo.
It does seem like it's going to happen quick. We're getting indications that they probably want to just get this done and get it over with because they don't want it to be talked about forever and ever. It's just bad press. In the meantime, and you hinted at it just a second ago, as everybody obsesses over this, his most serious crime, hands down, potential crime, the nursing home deaths. You know, Cuomo put COVID-positive nursing home patients back into nursing homes at a time when everybody knew these were the most vulnerable people. He made this ridiculous mistake, and we don't exactly know why. We've heard indications that maybe it was some kind of lobbying gone wrong. I have no idea, and we're going to learn more about that, hopefully, from an investigation. But that killed thousands of people. And then his administration lies about the numbers. And that is still under investigation, right?
That's exactly right. It's still on. Well, here's the thing. The Biden deal is going down with the ship. You talk also about Gretchen Whitmer, who has that issue. Talk about Murphy in New Jersey. Also, Newsom in California. I mean, this is their Democratic stars. As you mentioned before, these are people who would be seeking the White House the way that Andrew Cuomo was seeking the White House just 12 months ago. And now, ultimately, he cannot keep his hands to himself. But you're absolutely right. We cannot forget what I think is the most egregious crime that Andrew Cuomo committed, which is he let his ego get in the way of public policy. At the same time that you had the USS Comfort coming up the Hudson River, he did not want to give Donald Trump the political win, and that's why he signed that executive order to send all of those sick patients in with those healthy patients. The blood of at least 9,000 of the 15,000 New York seniors who died in nursing homes is on Andrew Cuomo's hands.
Well, you're trying to take his job. You're running for governor. He's up next year, and it's going to be a very interesting process. How's the campaign going? What do the numbers look like for you?
It's going well. So our first statewide poll, we're up 8 points statewide for the nomination here. I look forward to seeing our matchup against Andrew Cuomo directly here. Look, our primary is June of next year, so we still have about 10 and a half months to go before then. Right now, we're up in Syracuse. We were at Empire Farm Days today when this all broke it out. But that's our strategy. We're going to continue to push the grassroots and meet as many of the 19.5 million New Yorkers as possible. And the one thing Andrew Cuomo is very proud, he's very, very good at insulating himself. I want to be the exact opposite kind of candidate. I want to be on the ground talking to New Yorkers because the truth is they haven't had a governor that's actually come to them and engage with them. Our governor likes to touch them. He does not like to engage with them. I look forward to engaging with New Yorkers, not touching them.
Fair enough. We'll see if it's Cuomo that you're running against when this all comes out. It's good to see you. Andrew Giuliani running for governor in November of 2022. Sir, thanks for the time.
Rob, always great to be with you. Thank you.
All right. Coming up, migrants flooding our border at new record numbers, and the Biden administration lists off excuses like these.
Economic challenges, weather challenges, crime.
I mean, it's just unbelievable to listen to. They cannot just admit the so obvious reality of what's going on at the border. Senator Ron Johnson, state of Wisconsin, weighs in on the record numbers we're seeing as they're going up as the weather gets hotter, which never happens. That's coming up next, and then later.